It's time for Recruiting Better with me, Ben Browning. For ambitious recruiters, it's never been tougher to get seen as a trusted advisor and true partner to your clients and candidates. Join me each week as I address your challenges head-on, answering questions from recruitment consultants and business leaders, and introducing experts you can learn from whether you're looking to scale your billings or your business. So if you're looking for inspiration or insights to help you make more placements, win more new business, find more candidates, or simply replace long hours with smart moves, then stay tuned. Recruiting Better has got you covered. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Recruiting Better. So this week I attended an excellent event with the guys from the team, where both myself and Sean Anderson from Hoxo Media presented to a group of ambitious and aspiring recruitment business owners. And the message that I shared with them was all about something that is really close to the heart of what I talk to a lot of my clients around, which is the handbrake that bad business or low quality business puts on your ability to scale. What I wanted to share with you today was lots of the lessons that I shared in that presentation and some ideas around how you can find and fire the toxic clients that hold you back, as well as turning good clients into the fully committed and invested partners that you really want them to be. Recruitment leaders regularly tell me that inconsistent revenue is their biggest challenge. Second comes their consultants' performance. As soon as they feel like things are taking off, billings hit a bit of a bump and come back down. And there are a number of businesses that I've spoken to in the past who have grown to a certain level of headcount only for things to fall off a little bit and then have shrunk back down to a certain size. In fact, that yo-yo effect is commonly seen right the way through the recruitment industry and has been for many, many years. So breaking through that glass ceiling requires a little bit more of a strategic and thought through approach. And one of the things that's going to help you do that best is elevating and maximizing the results you get from every relationship. In 2022, recruiters won more new business than in any time previously. At the start of 2023, though, what they found was the clients that they won weren't hiring. Not only that, but they weren't accepting their calls, they weren't responding to their emails, they'd largely gone off the grid. What that tells us is that the quality of business that recruiters were winning last year maybe wasn't that high, the level of commitment wasn't that high, and the cost of doing lots of transactional business was just having clients who don't care about you or aren't interested to talk to you now that things are a little bit leaner. Now, I'm not saying you want to spend all of your time talking to clients who aren't hiring. Of course you don't. But there will come a time when those businesses are hiring again. And will you be top of mind? Will you be the business that they choose to bring their roles to? Or will you have to join the queue? For too many recruiters, the relationships they've built are wafer thin, a little bit flimsy, and actually not going to be able to deliver scalable returns in the future. Today, we change that. Problem is, of course, most recruiters have no ability to objectively assess the quality of the relationships they've built. So gut feel, likability, and rapport kind of come to center stage. These aren't good metrics for building sustainable, scalable business and long-term results. And actually, lots of the time, you will find yourself feeling like you're chasing business, maybe even feeling slightly anxious about calling clients because you feel like you're asking them for more roles to work on, but even haven't actually created that much value. And other times, you simply get ignored. When I ask recruiters what an ideal relationship with a client looks like for them, they typically tell me that there's elements of agreements around retainers or exclusive business. Maybe that client is someone who meets them on a regular basis, or at least, very least, takes their calls, makes time available for them. Perhaps an ideal client for you is someone who does more than just email over a job spec, and they actually get actively involved in helping you fill their roles. And perhaps maybe that ideal client is really just someone who gives you a review or an introduction or puts you in front of other new clients. Maybe all you want from your ideal clients is the ability to talk to them about different strategic topics, higher level business strategy, business planning, and taking a longer term view. Those are the kind of key ideas that come up when I talk to recruiters about what ideal relationship with their clients consist of. And typically, all of those ideas can be grouped into one of 5 areas. The 5 areas that will help you identify good quality clients and find and fire toxic clients that are holding you back fall into the acronym TECLA. That's time, engagement, collaboration, loyalty, and advocacy. In a minute, I'll break down exactly what those areas mean. But first, let's just dig into what a cost of bad business actually is and why it's so unacceptable and unscalable for you to continue to do business with people who fall into that toxic category. So to be clear, a toxic client is one that pays less than your standard fees, takes longer to hire than the other clients that you work with, and you don't fill as many of their roles either because they don't help you or they're pitching you up against too much competition or more competition than you should be working against, which arguably is any. Most recruiters should be working on an exclusive basis, whether or not you're getting paid up front. And so if you look at a relationship where a client is reducing their fees, taking longer, and you're not filling as many of those roles, as I did recently with a client, you can calculate the cost of those relationships. Typically, your worst clients will have negotiated a 25% discount on your fees, down from, say, 20% to 15%. At the same time, they'll take twice as long as your good clients to hire, and you'll fill only half of the vacancies that you do with your good clients. What that means is that for every £10,000 you make out of a good client, you're only going to make £1,825 out of a toxic client. If you spread that across a business and you think about £100,000 revenue or £1 million worth of revenue, you can see that those toxic clients are a real cap on your ability to get good quality results and efficiency out of the business that you win. What we're saying here is that bad clients, bad relationships are the biggest difference between high-performing organizations and the lowest performing organizations. In fact, when you look at top billers compared to consultants who are perhaps struggling or kind of not really exceeding expectations, the biggest difference is the quality of the clients that they work with, their fill rate, their fees, and their time to hire. You fix those 3 things and you're in a really good place. So how do you go from working with existing clients and turning them into people who pay more, recruit faster, and who fill more of their roles? The answer is found in scoring your clients using the TECLA framework and then using that to take action around actively expanding those accounts. Let me explain how. So we talked about how an ideal relationship is consisting of 5 key elements. Time, which clearly means just how much time you spend with your client, ideally in a face-to-face setting. Engagement, which actually means the kinds of topics you talk to them about and how engaged they are with you in talking about strategic topics rather than tactical ones, and talking about their business rather than just hiring. Collaboration, which relates to the way you take vacancies on. So that's things like whether they email you a job spec or whether you actually get time on the phone with them or face-to-face with them to do that properly. We're looking at loyalty in terms of the terms that you can get them to sign to, whether they're working with you exclusively on a retained basis or even on a multi-hire or multi-month type contract, which most of my clients are typically selling these days. And then advocacy, which is everything from a happy shopper review, Ben is brilliant, Anna's amazing, Simon's superb, through to video testimonials and case studies and introductions, direct introductions to other hiring managers or hiring stakeholders within their business or across the industry. Those 5 areas provide the basis for a scorecard. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the commitments that you expect or demand from your clients in each one of those areas. And we're going to score them on a scale of 1 to 5. Let me break that down. So in order to objectively give scores to our client relationships and step away from using our gut feel or intuition to work out which good relationships are, what we're going to do is we're going to create a scorecard based on the TECLA framework. Each element of the framework is scored out of 5. So you're going to score your client's engagement with you on a scale of 1 to 5, where time, for example, might run from them taking your call all the way through to agreeing to meet with you face-to-face regularly on a monthly basis as a level 5. In engagement, They'll talk to you about vacancies is probably a level 1, but them talking to you about their 5-year business plan becomes a level 5 engagement score. Collaboration, if they email you a spec, that's a level 1, but for level 5, they need to sit down with you face to face and go through in some detail. For loyalty, the lowest level of commitment you can get is they sign your terms of business for contingent terms, but the highest level of commitment is perhaps that you're working with them on a retained basis, multi-hire, maybe even a monthly type subscription model. And advocacy, at the lowest level, they say nice things about you, maybe even give you a review. And at the top level, they give you introductions, video testimonials, and all sorts of other great pieces of work that you can share with your clients and target clients. Once you've got that framework built, once you've got that scorecard in place, you can look at every one of your relationships and score them out of 25. You can go through and work out what each one of those relationships is worth to you. And that score out of 25 will give you an indication about how you deal with those clients and what you do next. The key then is to think about a proactive account expansion strategy. And I actually think that right now, account expansion is probably the rock stars of the recruitment world. The people who are out there building out are really capitalizing on the gains that the businesses, recruitment businesses made in 2022, turning those newly won accounts into real high value partners is a real specialist skill set and one that you can learn too. So looking at our scorecard then and thinking about the relationships we've got in place, any client who's scoring less than 10, maybe less than 7, depending on how much leeway you want to give them, is what I would describe as a toxic client. It typically means that they're not really talking to you very often, they're not meeting you very often, they're not talking to you about any kind of strategic topics, they're not collaborating very highly more than above the basic level. They're not particularly loyal. You've got terms signed, but very little more other than that. And maybe they're giving you reviews, but they're not doing a great deal of additional work to support you or helping you win new business. So a score of below 10, below 7 maybe, toxic client, my expectation is that you make very little money out of those clients for the effort that you put in. You are typically finding those clients take longer to hire. They are, you're less likely to place with them, and also they've probably negotiated fees down a little bit as well. So using that chart, using that scorecard, you can really work out which one of those areas you need to develop and push forward. At the flip side, any client scoring above 20, or maybe even any client is scoring in excess of 17, is performing really well for you. You're typically at this stage getting regular time with them on a face-to-face basis, talking more deeply about their business, collaborating with them quite closely on their vacancies. You've got something more than basic level of terms agreed, maybe that's exclusive or even potentially retained, and they're doing something actively on your behalf to help you win new business. When you're in that situation, you really want to be thinking about locking that client in. So those scores of 17 to 20 or more, you really want to be tying those commitments down. You really want to be putting a ring on it, so to speak, in terms of the commitment that you build with those clients. It's important that you get in contract, you get in writing the service level agreement that you're offering them. A great way to frame this is to say, look, our clients typically ask us to provide this level of service to them and commit to provide this level of service to them. And they want to make sure they've always got access to it whenever they need to hire. So what I'll do for you is I'll prepare a 6-month agreement, a service level agreement, so you know exactly what you can get from us over the next 6 months. Now, if at any time we need to review that or we think we can improve on the service that we provide you, of course we'll do that. But in any case, we'll look back over the 6-month period at the end of the contract and make sure that we're finding ways to take it forward if we need to improve it if we need to, or maintain that service standard if you're really providing you're really happy with it, which I'm sure you will be. I can make all of that available to you if in return you're able to commit to working with us as your exclusive partner for the next 6 months. And that way you're turning your kind of transactional relationship, your one-off job-by-job relationship, into something that is multi-hire or multi-month. Some clients will even be very happy to pay a monthly subscription to you to retain that relationship And it's really worth thinking about different models or different productized ways to maintain that engagement and generate revenue out of clients. So if you've got a client who's going to hire multiple times over the next 6 months, I'd absolutely be thinking about how you can spread their costs, spread their investment with you by charging a classic retainer model, not the recruitment retainer model, more of a subscription fee type approach. Lastly, don't forget to think about maximizing the advocacy of your top clients. So your client might be really high performing in all the other buckets, but they're not doing as much as they could to help you win new business. That's a real opportunity for low-hanging fruit. Ask them who they can introduce you to. Ask them who they know who struggles with hiring. Ask them who they know who have similar experiences to hiring than they had in the past and who they believe you could potentially provide a better service to. When you identify relationships that are at that level of quality, going through tightening the screws and making sure you're getting everything out of them possible is a really big opportunity. And those high value relationships that you've taken time to build, it's really important that you get the final kind of elements of maximization out of those, because you're really reaching those higher branches, and effectively the multiplier value that's attached to each one of those next steps in the relationship is even greater. For everybody else, for clients who score between 10 and 20 on the TECLA scale, there's work to do. So you can forget about anybody with a score less than 10. Basically, if you ignore them, they'll go away. You might decide there's some more value to be got, but to be honest, may find that you've made it too difficult to really expand those accounts and get them to a healthy place. On the flip side, with those above 20, you want to log that commitment in. But the area of clients or the number of clients that you have between 10 and 20, they're the ones where there's real potential. Now you want to look at those relationships and think, okay, how much potential is available here? Do I really want to grow this out? Do I really want to build out this relationship? We can talk about active strategies for doing that, and we will do that in a moment. But we start with this idea of really kind of thinking about a grid where you've got low quality, high potential, low potential, high quality. And by working out which category your existing clients fall into, particularly those that are scoring between 10 and 20 on the TECLA scale, you can work out which strategies are going to be right for those clients. So let's say we've got a client who is low quality right now, but high potential. That is where I'd be putting a significant chunk of time. For a business who is high quality but low potential, you may find that kind of business stagnates. And as much as you try to push that relationship forward, it just becomes really difficult. I mentioned earlier that top billers typically have the highest proportion of good quality clients. And actually, as a rule of thumb, we should be aiming for the majority of the businesses that you regularly do business with or regularly target or consider as part of your roster. You want to make sure that those businesses are scoring at least a score of 15. You want them at least kind of in that midpoint zone. So if 50% of your businesses score 15 or more, then you're doing really well in terms of the TECLA framework, in terms of the account expansion framework. Another way to assess how well you're doing in terms of account expansion is to regularly check in, so to review your relationships quarterly and see how quickly those scores are increasing. So if you've got a relationship which is 10 at the beginning of quarter one, but it reaches a 15-point score by the end of or by the start of quarter two, then you've added 5 points in that 3 months. And that's really good progress. The account expansion team, or your account management team, as you may have historically called them, your account expanders should be constantly looking to add TECLA points to the scores of their accounts. There are a number of strategies and ways to do that. And over the next section of this show, I'm going to take you through 5 strategies, one for each one of the TECLA buckets. So a strategy to increase the amount of time you get with your clients, engagement, collaboration, loyalty, and advocacy. With this framework, you are going to be able to increase the scores of all of your client relationships, which means in turn, positioning yourself to increase your fees, reduce the amount of time it takes to fill those roles, and increase the proportion of roles that you work on, that you hire. That is a really good recipe for creating sustainable, scalable results.
Standing out in your sector is becoming harder than ever. Lots of people are making noise, saturating the market with the same old droll tones. So if you want to stand out, it's time to start a podcast. Yes, there's loads of podcasts out there, but how many of them are actually in your niche? Do any of them speak to your perspective on the market? I didn't think so. Podcasting not only sets you apart as an innovative thinker in your market, it is great content for repurposing. Here at SearchStat, we help you become the voice of your industry. We can stretch your content and turn it into a content goldmine, leveling up your personal brands and recruitment marketing in the process. Sounds good, doesn't it? Well, to find out more, head over to searchstat.co.uk/podcasts.
All right, so we've agreed that bad business is holding back your organisation and putting a handbrake on your ability to scale. We've recognised that most of the time recruiters are using gut feel and intuition to assess the quality of their relationships, and that frankly, if you want to get sustainable results, that's probably not enough. I've shared with you the TECLA framework and the way to score your client accounts and your relationships, and I've also talked about the kind of measures you can take if those scores fall below a certain level and above a certain level, and what to do if they sit in between. Now we're going to spend a few minutes looking at the account expansion strategies you can be taking to improve your TECLA score, increase your fees, reduce your time to hire, and dramatically increase your fill rate. The first one to look at is the way that you spend time with your clients. And this is relatively straightforward, right? You want your client to know that there are opportunities for them to learn from you and gain your insights through regular update meetings, whether or not they're hiring. All of this comes down to positioning, right? You want your client to see you as someone who can add value in the information that you bring. So the question to you as a recruiter is, what information do you have that you could share with a client that would help them even when they're not hiring? Typically, this comes down to two things. The first one is benchmarking their competition and benchmarking their activity and the things they're doing against what their competition is doing, getting their recruitment strategy and hiring processes kind of built for success when they do next need to hire. That might also include market updates in terms of what talent think about them and what the talented people in their industry think about them. The second thing is looking at building kind of talent pipelines and on-demand pipelines so that you can proactively create a pool of candidates that are interested in your client through a variety of different marketing channels. There's a whole bunch of other things you can throw in there that will be insights that your client benefit from, but the key is to let your client know that you have got an extensive range of information that'd be worth their time spending on you to get access to. There's a thing that Anthony Iannarino often talks about. Anthony Iannarino wrote The Only Sales Guide You'll Ever Need and a bunch of other sales books, including most recently Elite Sales Strategies. His background actually is staffing, so he came from the recruitment industry in the US and rose to be a really highly regarded and award-winning sales writer. I recommend checking him out, and we'll drop a link to Anthony's work in the show notes. The reason I mention him is he talks about delivering executive briefings on a regular basis for your client, typically 15 to 20 minute market snapshots. Nothing too long or exhaustive, but just an opportunity to touch base with your client, talk to them about the opportunities and threats that sit in their market, how they might affect them, and then at the end of that call, ask the question, which is simply, so how do you think this is going to affect you guys, and what are you doing about it? By positioning yourself as the owner of information, the owner of knowledge in your sector, you make yourself indispensable to your clients, and it's easy to get more time with them in a face-to-face manner. That also means that when they do come to hire, they're far more likely to actually ask your advice on how to go about it. They see you as experts and advisors rather than simply someone who can fill their roles. So the next element of the TECLA framework is engagement, right? So engagement here, we're talking about the level of strategic conversation that you have with your clients. Is it purely tactical? Is it only talking to them about hiring or when they've got a vacancy? Or are you actually talking to them about their business and their goals? And very similarly to the strategy where we were getting more time with your client, this comes down to the advice and the insight you're able to share with them. However, in this instance, when we're getting to this kind of more strategic level, what we need to be doing is relating the threats, the opportunities that you're seeing in the market to challenges or changes and transformations that other businesses are making and steps that other businesses are making in line with their bigger policies. So what you need to be doing is asking questions to your clients about their bigger, broader goals. What is their 5-year plan? What is their hiring strategy? What is the trajectory of their business? What are they seeing? And then relating that back to how that's going to impact their hiring strategy and what they need to be thinking about doing differently. One of the best ways to do this is to keep hold of a list of problems that your core stakeholder groups face or worry about. The things that are coming up on their board meetings, or when they're having meetings with their boss or with the CEO, what is the CEO asking them about? So for finance, it could be overall cost or revenue. For HR, it could be retention. For operations, it could be a whole manner of different projects and other things that are going on within the business. And when you start to understand the pressures and priorities that the leaders, the stakeholders you're talking to are facing, you can really start seeing themes and trends that align with hiring as a result. When you start asking them questions about those bigger, broader ticket scenarios, you can start building a real picture about how much value you can add. And the final thing to bear in mind is to continually come back to examples of what other businesses are doing. In the same way that we secure time by talking about threats and opportunities based on competitors and changes in the market, we're going to do the same thing to increase the level of engagement. We're going to shift it from hiring right the way up to the 5-year plan, thinking about share price, thinking about expansion plans, thinking about scale and growth. The next area that we're going to talk about is how to get your clients to collaborate more deeply. And actually, the main focus for this is going to be thinking about your vacancy consultation process. Now, if you listen to the first series of the podcast, and I recommend you check it out, there's quite a lot of stuff we covered there on vacancy consultations. What's a vacancy consultation? Well, it's a better name for a job brief. And it's a better name because it more accurately describes what's happening in that conversation. Instead of a job briefing being where your client tells you what they're looking for and tells you to go on and get it for them, actually, in your vacancy consultation, you're giving advice, you're giving feedback, you're giving information to your client as you go through that process. It's a two-way dialogue, and you're determining, you're agreeing together, A, what they need to be looking for, B, how to determine whether their candidates they meet have those skill sets, and C, how the role is going to be sold. Really important that you're an active partner in defining every step of that process. And if you want more advice around that, I can share with you a whole range of techniques and skills and even a whole framework that will support you in being able to do that. That's a process that I share with many of my clients who are looking to increase the amount of roles that they fill, increase the proportion of the roles they fill, and also reduce their time to hire, so increase the speed at which they get roles filled. You do those two things, as we said earlier, you're going to massively increase your revenue. So we've got strategies to increase the time that you spend with clients by providing insights. Strategies around engagement, which means really shifting the topic of conversation. Strategies around collaboration, which means using a vacancy consultation process to make the whole job briefing much more of a dialogue and much more of a back and forth conversation. We're now moving to look at loyalty, which starts with creating service level agreements for your client and really getting them to agree those in advance. But then secondly, it's all about the review. Creating greater loyalty. We like to think in our personal relationships that loyalty comes naturally. However, in business relationships, you simply do not get what you don't ask for. It's absolutely crucial from a commercial perspective that if you want loyal clients, you ask your clients to be loyal. So we set those SLAs, we set those agreements about what commitments we're going to make to them, and we ask for that commitment in return. And then at the end of that period, whether that be 3 months or 6 months, whether it be a single hire, we go back to them and we say, I need to know how we did and how we can improve this relationship going forwards. This isn't about you patting me on the head and telling me what a good boy I've been and telling me what a good job I've done. It's about me really understanding how we can drive your experience of hiring forwards, how we can transform your hiring experiences, and how we can get you to a really good place in the future. And as you do that, you create an opportunity to hear from your clients what they liked and what they didn't like about working with you, what you can change and improve It helps you understand your own processes. It helps you understand your client better. And with that information comes a great deal of power. First of all, making the improvements that become apparent from the feedback that you take means you're able to sell your client a better level of service, either for an increased fee or for increased level of commitment. So let's say your client comes away from the process and they say, yeah, we really like the way it worked. We're just still not sure that we're selling our roles accurately enough. And you say, okay, well, look, what's worked for some of our clients is we actually go around and interview all of the people that are stakeholders within that role. So everybody who's going to be involved with kind of collaborating with or working alongside, or your new hire is going to be reporting into, all of those people we will interview, talk to them about what they want from the role, talk to them about what their background and their experience has been, and really use that as a showcase to really help sell this opportunity to candidates. Is that the sort of thing that we can do for you? Or do you think that wouldn't work? And if your client says, yes, we'd love that, that sounds really good, you say, great, well, look, we can do that, but it's going to take a bigger investment of our time. So look, what I propose we do is we build that into a service package, we build that into a service level, and I'm able to make that available to you for just a couple of percentage points more on the base salary next time you come to hire. Or alternatively, I'm happy to make that available to you. All I'm going to ask is that you pay a fifth of the fee up front. So there's a couple of different ways of doing that, but it all stems from taking the feedback, being in a position to understand what your client's experience has been and how you can drive that forwards. It also gives you an opportunity to increase and leverage your advocacy. So say I've gone to the client. It's crazy of me to think I can ask my client to give me a positive review that I can share with other people, or ask them to introduce me to other people until I know what they've liked and how they've experienced our service. So if I come to you and I say, hey Dave, we've been working together for 6 months now, can you introduce me to a couple of your mates? And you say, well, no, because I don't think you've done a great job. Then it just that's just a horrible situation to be in right from the get-go. But it's kind of crazy that you would ask somebody to do something for you without you even know whether they're happy with the work you've done for them. So what I propose is that we take feedback from all of our clients, that you go out and you're really active and really kind of proactive in seeking feedback from your clients, saying to them, look, how did we do? Tell me the good, the bad, the ugly. Tell me the stuff you don't think I want to hear. Tell me all of the things that come to mind when you think about the experience you've had with us. And they say, no, look, it's been great. And you say, well, it can't have all been great. There must be some gap. There must be something we can do. No, you know what, Ben? We've been really happy with it. I'd say it's a 9.5 out of 10. And I say, okay, cool. Do you think we can find what that 0.5 is? That difference between where we are and what's perfect? And they say, I just don't know. Let's keep working at it and we'll see. Great. Okay, cool. So I've got a 9.5 review. So look, basically it sounds as though you're pretty happy. It sounds as though you're reasonably pleased with the work we've done. Yeah, look, we're phenomenally pleased. We're really happy. Okay. So do you know anybody else, or do you think that it's common that most people, when they come to hire in your industry or in your organization, feel this good about the way they hire? No, definitely not. No, I think most people really struggle. Okay. And if I were to reach out to those people and to tell them about the work we've done together, how do you think they'd respond? I think they'd be interested. Yeah, I think they'd be really pleased to hear about it. Okay, cool. And when you think about those people, who comes to mind first? Who are the first three people that come up for you? And then my follow-up question is, great, when can you introduce me, or how would be the best way for you to introduce me to those three people? Is there any reason you wouldn't feel comfortable introducing me to those three people? And then if I were to reach out to those people, what do you recommend I should say? In fact, if it's easier for you, here's a template that you can forward on to them, CC me in, and that'll hopefully make the job of introducing me that little bit easier for you. What do you say? So you're just breaking it down, making it really easy, finding out as much information as possible. Not just asking for the name, but asking for the introduction. Not just asking for the introduction, but asking for the reason why those people come to mind. The more information you can get as a result of kind of building that introduction, the better. Once you've asked for those introductions, once you've asked for that recommendation, you can also say, hey, look, there may also be people who approach me who you don't know, who are coming to me to find out whether we can help them. Maybe they've had similar experiences to you in the past. Maybe they felt as though the way they've recruited historically hasn't been optimal, and they're looking at ways to improve it. But they ask me if I can improve it. I say yes, but they'd like to speak to a third party or hear from a third party to help them support that decision. Is there any reason you wouldn't feel comfortable with me sharing the things that you've told me today with them so they can make a more informed decision? Now, most of the people you speak to, most of your clients won't reject that. They won't say, no, you can't do that. And if you've been recording the conversation, you could say, hey, well, look, I've got this recorded. Are you happy for me to send you a couple of clips back around the things that you've told me that I might then potentially be able to share with other people to help kind of support their decision and give them some clarity over what it's like working with me? Again, most people to that will say no. The other way you can use that is to use a transcription app like Otter, which will transcribe your recorded session with them into text, and you can send that text to the client, and you get them to read it through and say, hey, are you happy for me to use this language when we're talking to people about the kind of decision or the kind of support that we can offer? There's a lot there, right? Building relationships in terms of more time, more engagement, more collaboration, more loyalty, more advocacy. Scoring your relationships over periods of time so you can see the growth in your accounts. Thinking about completely scrapping and firing the toxic clients who don't even score 10 points on your 25-point scale, and thinking about really locking down with commitments and agreements those clients who score over 20 points. Replacing intuition and gut feel with a really objective approach so that you can take the handbrake off your ability to scale, so you can stop suffering with the inconsistent results that prevent you from growing your business and really maximize the value of those existing accounts. That's how you go about turning a set of clients that you picked up kind of by accident through your BD last year in 2022 into a set of really well bought in, fully committed clients who represent your dream roster. What do you think? What's holding you back? What's going to stop you from getting to work with that straight away? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions as always. Don't forget to follow this podcast, leave us a review, give us 5 stars if you're enjoying it, and I look forward to hearing from you and being with you next time. For now, take care, all the best, and get to it.